The hits just keep coming for Mark Robinson and his campaign for governor in North Carolina. The Republican is facing calls to drop out of the race following a report by CNN alleging that he referred to himself as a black Nazi on a porn site years ago. And now the Republican Governors Association appears to be pulling the plug. Their ad buy in the Tar Heel state expires tomorrow, and they have not made another one. And over the weekend, four is a lot of his top staffers. I'm talking about the campaign manager, the deputy campaign manager. They resigned from his campaign, but Robinson insists that he is actually staying in the race.
We have full confidence that we can go on. We're getting resumes from all over. We're getting offers from all over. People are jumping in to help us. We've made a ton of friends in this thing since we've been in. A lot of talented people right now are reaching out to us.
With us for more is Mark McKinnon, former advisor to both George W. Bush and John McCain, and Maria Urbina, former senior advisor to Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid and the national political director of the Indivisible Project. Mark, I guess I'm going to start here with the fact that the Trump campaign is not pulling their endorsement of Robinson, which, like, how could they, given that Donald Trump is at the top of this ticket? Like, given the majority of the range of things that Donald Trump has said and done over the years in his career, it doesn't seem as though that he would pull an endorsement. But the interesting thing here is that neither Donald Trump nor Vance has appeared with the lieutenant governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson, since the comments surfaced. Trump was literally in Wilmington, North Carolina, earlier, just a couple days ago. So is this going to be enough to avoid being dragged down by Robinson in this state?
No, listen, I think although he does look like a choir boy next to Donald Trump in terms of his overall record, it's a problem. It's a real problem. I mean, all these statewide efforts are based on the strength of the overall ticket, and the person running for governor is at the top of the statewide ticket, and that creates it creates all kinds of field work. It creates all kinds of incentives. It creates an up and down the ballot effect. And the most important thing is for people to be excited about their races in these states. And I think very strongly now that North Carolina could be the route that Harris goes to win this election. Listen, I think that it's possible she'll win Pennsylvania, but I think it's also possible she'll lose it. But I also think if she loses Pennsylvania, I think it's very likely now that she will win North Carolina. And then I think she has a very good possibility of picking up either Georgia and or Arizona. So I think North Carolina is really shifting politically. And I think the Mark Robinson effect is a big, big problem.
Maria, the Mark Robinson effect is a thing, as Mark has noted. Donald Trump does appear to have a slight polling edge in some key Sunbelt battlegrounds like North Carolina. Again, these are all within the margin of error. As I like to say, polls don't vote, people do. What is your take on the polling, that's New York Times Siena polling that notes this slight edge, and also just the state of the race on the ground in North Carolina specifically? Democrats have been spending more money over the last couple of cycles. They've been spending more time. And it looks like, because now it's so close, it's paying off.
Well, let me start by saying, in the words of the Grand Dame of Potomac Housewives, this effect is messy, it's mildewy, and it is moldy. And this is Trump's doing. This is Trump's party. This is not a surprise. When you look at his track record on candidate quality, whether it's in North Carolina, whether it's in Ohio with Bernie Moreno, who's saying that he's surprised that women care about their rights.
Particularly women over the age of 50, but we'll get to that.
And I mean, like, ask Mitch McConnell what he thinks about Trump's track record on picking candidates. So one, let me just say, messy, 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 and it's this chaos of his own doing. In terms of the state of play, I am an organizer, so similar to you, I'm sort of like, okay, 10 points is a big jump for 1 month. Let's look at indicators by voters and their actions. 61,000 voters, women voters, have newly registered in North Carolina. That is meaningful because when you track that trend back to when Roe fell in 2022 ahead of the midterms, women were registering at much higher levels. And back then, people would sort of swat it away as, oh, this can't be about abortion. This can't be about women being responsive. Guess what it was? And guess what? Trump is essentially admitting that he's losing women. And you don't want to be on that path.
Mark, Maria makes a really good point. The vice president's campaign is actually targeting suburban women in North Carolina. This is an important point here to note that the suburbs over the last 20 years, they have become more diverse. And so whereas previously when people said suburban women, they might be exclusively talking about white women voters. Suburban women are white women. They're Latino women. They're black women in the suburbs, AAPI, Pacific Islander. And some of the women in the suburbs are millennials, because the oldest millennials this year, they're turning 43. So this surge of women registering to vote that Maria just spoke to, this could be a good strategy for the Harris campaign, correct?
Absolutely right. I think Maria's nailed it. I think the story of this election will not be undecided voters. It will be previously unregistered voters who are voting for the first time in this election. 61,000 is a huge number, and I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. Anecdotally, I'm hearing all kinds of feedback about just registration numbers I haven't heard from ever. So the problem with polling is that it uses a mirror instead of a periscope. It's looking backwards at models from 2020. People weren't excited in that election. There's a lot of excitement in this election, and there's going to be a lot of new voters. So that's why I think it's really difficult to look at the polling in North Carolina, Arizona, or Georgia, because it's not picking up newly registered voters. And I think that that's going to be the big story of this election.
I mean, just one follow-up, like what is you look at all the polling and whatnot, and I always think to myself, particularly in the last 3 weeks, what is a likely registered voter in an election cycle like this one where there are so many new registrants? Like, is it even possible to adequately predict what the electorate could potentially be on Election Day?
It's not. You can't adequately predict it because you don't know what it's going to be, because you don't know how many newly registered voters there are. What they're modeling, they're basing it on 2020. They're looking at the numbers of 2020, and so they're basing all those likely voter models on saying, well, it'll probably be something like 2020. I don't think it's going to be like 2020 at all. I think it's going to be way bigger than that. And so I think the polling really might be missing this one.
Maria, one of Vice President Harris's largest applause lines at her North Carolina rally was on reproductive rights. And you talked about the issue of abortion rights. And North Carolina is we should note, is a battleground state, but it is not a state in this election. There are 10 states where there are abortion or reproductive freedom amendments on the ballot, and North Carolina is not one of those states. Given the abortion ban that is currently in place in the state of North Carolina, or the near total abortion ban, the Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson, again, Republican candidate, his stance on abortion and the comments that he said, how important is abortion specifically to this state when it comes to the voters and turning them out?
When you look at North Carolina, it's not surprising that you're seeing this political terrain, right? It's not surprising that she's getting a loud applause line, because the Republican majorities there got a Democrat to turn her back on her constituents and vote with their majorities so they could push through an abortion ban. That creates a salience around the issue. That creates contrast around the issue. And as we said before, clear receipts that American voters are not forgetting about what Republicans have done to create worse health conditions and abortion bans. And so it's not surprising that it's a huge applause line. And in North Carolina, they may not have a way to directly express their discontent vis-a-vis a ballot measure, but they will be able to express their discontent against Republican majorities that are taking away their rights and their health care.
Mark, Donald Trump, again, he's had some real losses with women voters, and he seems to be going after young men to make up for those losses. Do you think that's going to be enough in what is clearly shaking out to be a tight race? And two, what do you think about the outreach? Like, it seems, particularly his outreach to Latino men and to black men, it seems very inauthentic, to say the least.
Well, I'd say a couple things. One is that from everything I'm hearing in reporting, that the ground game efforts are really well coordinated on the Democratic side and paid. Most of the stuff on the Republican side is volunteer, and you know the difference between volunteer workers and paid workers. It's a big difference. But I will just throw one note of caution to those who think conventionally that just because there's a lot of new voters being registered that they're primarily Democrats and they're all voting for Harris. I've seen some videos from Charlie Kirk on college campuses lately that blow your mind. I mean, he's got a sea of young men out there on college campuses, and there are a lot of them. So don't discount the number of men that might be registering as well, because there seems to be a lot going on there as well.
this is going to be a close election. The margins matter. Look at the data, not just the polling, even though the NBC News poll is good.